there's something else that we need to talk about here, which is that memory allocation. Now, if you're on a newer SDK, it turns out that PlayStation 5 Pro actually has access to much more addressable memory than PlayStation 5. At the moment, PlayStation 5 has, out of its 16 gigs of memory, 12.5 gigabytes of space that's there that the games can use. On the 5 Pro, this increases to, I think it's 13.7. It's a 1.2 gigabyte increase in memory that's available to developers, which I think is excellent, because that was a big problem with 4 Pro. It only had an extra 500 megabytes. But it is still a 16 gigabyte machine. The way this is working, I suspect, is that lower priority applications that currently sit within main system memory may move on to some other memory system that's much slower. That's what 4 Pro did effectively. Yeah. But this is excellent news, right? Because as Sony says, PSSR has a memory footprint of its own, and they're also suggesting that that extra memory can be used for more complex BVH structures or stuff that you need for ray tracing, which I think is great, right, Alex?
Oh yeah, I mean, for example, like imagine Spider-Man 2. Good example of ray tracing on console, but like if you looked at the ray traced reflections there, they're limited in their complexity. They're like very simple versus the real world because one, it's expensive to trace that, but two, there's probably also memory considerations as a part of that. Here, if you had a PS5 Pro which didn't have unlocked extra memory, it would just be tracing those same kind of low fidelity reflections at higher frame rates or higher resolution, presuming the CPU doesn't get in the way there for any sense. This is all great because that means they can actually upgrade things meaningfully from a fidelity perspective by having more geometry, more complex geometry in that BVH. I think that's great.
Mm-hmm. Anything to add to that, Oliver?
Well, I think it shows that Sony is thinking through some of the problems that you'd have if you just bumped up the power and computation of the machine without factoring in that memory subsystem. And I think that bonus 1.2 gigabytes, if they add 2 gigabytes of slower DDR system memory onto the board there, that would probably do it, given that the PS4 Pro had an extra 1 gigabyte. And developers got an extra, I think, half a gig on there. So
yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that would make sense to me, and that would give them enough. I mean, I don't think it would really affect the system too much if you're moving some stuff in the OS, some background applications into that pool of memory. So that would certainly be a good way to make the system more usable for doing more complex things with the machine beyond just increasing resolution. Although that, of course, carries its own memory footprint hit. So it is I think a well considered increase.